Hello, Mr. Cove here, and today I'm going to be talking about Welcome to Derry, which is an It series that premiered on HBO last night with its first episode. This will be a spoiler review where we do go over what actually happens in the episode. So if you're not looking for spoilers, go ahead and watch the video, come back later to this. And if you're someone who doesn't mind spoilers to see if you're going to be interested in this series or not, then stick around and we'll get into it. So I've been a fan of it for a long time. I read the original book when I was a little kid. Shortly after, I saw the miniseries that was on TV, and then the movies as well, the past two movies. And so it's been one of the better horror creations to me that's come out. And this series is one of my most anticipated for the last few years since I've enjoyed, all of the It content that's been out so far. Uh, Granted, that is all kind of the same story. The movies are just kind of remakes of the miniseries, although I think those were done better, mostly because they were, in movie format instead of on TV and had to be, PG back then. The movies are R. Um, and it's pretty obvious that this series is kind of a step up from that, kind of R plus. It's not, rated X or anything like that, but the gore and the scenes, I think, are a step up from what the last movies have offered as well, which I like as long as we're not relying on the grossness and the horror of it um, to overshadow the story and the scary moments and stuff like that. So we start out with Matt, uh, and he's a little kid. He's watching a movie in a theater. It's kind of a weird movie. Um, Eventually, he has to run out. He has snuck into the theater, is watching a movie for free, and the manager is chasing him around. Uh, a young girl kind of protects him, sees him, and says, "Hey, I saw him going the other direction. He must be over there." That allows him to get out without the manager catching him. And then it gets into the scene that the trailer shows where a car stops while he's kind of freezing, walking home, apparently, maybe. But, uh, seemingly nice family stops, offers to give him a ride. He says he just wants to get out of Derry, and they say, "Great, we're going somewhere else." And then the scene quickly shifts to this car is apparently just it itself, and all of the characters within it, are controlled by it or it. And the woman gives birth to this like scary gargoyle baby thing that's flying around. And eventually it appears to kill Matt while they're driving around there. Pretty graphic. I wasn't opposed to it or anything, but it was pretty gross. And then what I did like about it is as he's apparently killed, we don't actually get to see that. His He's got like a pacifier or something. I thought it was like a piece of candy that he was chewing on or something initially, but I think it's just a pacifier. Goes flying out of the car and ends up heading to a drain. It's kind of a callback to the movies and the book. So that was kind of cool. Wasn't a terrible scene. Seeing a kid get killed immediately, obviously is normal in the It franchise here. So seeing that is no surprise. And then we kind of move on from there. We fast forward 4 months. He is presumed dead, but missing. His body hasn't been found or anything. And then we move to a military base close by, I guess, Air Force Base. And this um, black commander shows up with his buddy, and we see right away a little bit of racism and stuff. This is the 60s now. We've backed up 27 years from the original story, and we'll continue to do so in the future seasons, backing up 27 years each time. So that's kind of unsurprising. Where there's at least a couple people that are racist in Air Force Base in the 60s, right? Having this salute this black commander, and they don't like that too much. I'll just continue on with kind of that story because I'm not sure how it fits in yet. I do have a theory though. So uh, a couple days later, while he's still at the base, he's buying a house in Derry, but it's not ready for him, or the other people haven't moved out or whatever. So he'll be living in Derry soon. But right now, he's just at the base. Some guys with masks show up and guns and want him to give the specs to this new bomber that he's going to be testing. I guess he's a pilot, a good pilot, and so they bring him to this Air Force base. That's why he's moved here to be able to test this new aircraft. It's the midst of the Cold War, so you'd assume it's like people working for Russians that want to know how this plane works or whatever. He refuses, like, go ahead and shoot me. His buddy shows up and saves him, but they just he has like a pipe at the end that he's holding with against these guys with guns, and they're just kind of like, okay, I guess we got to leave then, and they just walk out. So that was kind of a weird scene. Not sure where that's going, but again, just episode one, so we don't have to know where that's going yet. That's fine. But it did seem a little weird that they could have just killed that guy and then kept asking the other guy what they wanted here, since they still had their guns, and the guy was just holding a pipe. But maybe they thought, they'd been there long enough. Other people are going to come. There could be a legit reason why they decide to get out of there at that point. So my theory with him, and we'll see if this continues for the other series, if I'm right, is that he's going to be in the next series as a kid. That's my theory. And so we're gonna be able to have some characters transfer season to season because we're going to see them as adults, just like the original It, where we have the kids that survived, and then we get to see them as adults in like the second movie, second half of the book, or whatever. I think that's what they're setting up here. So I think that's going to be the importance of his character, is that he has some history with It from living there before, but probably similar to the movies and the book, that he doesn't remember that until he actually gets back there. It's kind of part of its powers, is that once you leave and you're an adult, you're not thinking about it until you get back, or something happens, like your friend dies or something, right? And so that was kind of it for that character. I'm sure we'll see him, as he's moving in the Derry, and get more on that. And I could be way off. It could have nothing to do with, the next series or whatever. He may have never lived there. So, and since he's moving there to test um, this new bomber, he could have maybe never been there, right? So that fits as well. So I may be way off on that, but that's my initial episode one theory on his character. So next we have this other girl, uh, Lily, who is prominent in the trailer. Uh, Her dad has apparently died a year ago. She blames herself. Maybe her mom blames her as well. We see her at school, and some kids are bullying her and have a bunch of pickle jars ready to crash onto her as she opens her locker, and one spills out and gets pickle juice on her. We don't know the relevance of that until a little bit later, where we find out that her dad died. He worked at a pickle factory, maybe had some other things they were canning as well, and she had forgotten something. She was there with him. They were going to leave his work, and then she forgot something, so he goes back in to get it, and then a machine malfunctions. He tries to help, and it sounds pretty gross, where like the machinery starts and like the gears and stuff start working again, and he gets torn apart. And so she thinks that if she just wouldn't have forgot it, he wouldn't have been back in there, and he would still be alive. So she's a pretty messed up kid. It sounds like she's also been sent to maybe not an asylum, but somewhere, where they send mental patients at least briefly. She's back in school now. So she's obviously having a hard time with this. It's also shown she's on medication, and her mom doesn't seem the greatest either, which, makes sense. Most of its targets, is like a predator. He wants the easy prey. So going after these troubled kids, that don't have a support system that some of the other kids may have, is kind of his MO. So uh, she starts to hear something in the drain. She's about to shower. Um, it turns out it's it's Matt's voice, which she recognizes. She had, I wouldn't say been friends with him, but they had hung out at least once and, knew of him. And so she's, kind of looking at the drain, thinks, that's actually him. And, he's missing or maybe kidnapped in some pipes and ends up sticking his finger through that's kind of bloody through the drain. And she's telling him to come back, um, run away and come back to them or whatever. And he says he won't let me, right? Obviously referring to it. And so far, these are all good scenes, good children actors so far. The family in the car has two kids as well. They do a good job as well of being creepy, and so everything's looking good here so far as the acting. We don't know where the story's going yet, but thus far, setting, acting, writing, solid so far, right? The next day, we see Lily talking to Marge, which appears to be her best friend at school. She's telling Marge this story. Marge doesn't want to hear it. She wants her not to talk like this. I think she tells her that she's trying to be a good friend. And I think that's accurate. Lily's bullied. They think she's crazy. Uh, Having bullies put pickle jars, in your locker when your dad died at a pickle plant, a year ago is pretty bad for bullying, but uh, you know, uh, Marge, her friend, wants her to not get picked on and, doesn't want her acting weird so she can kind of rehabilitate and, not be this person that's going to be picked on. So she doesn't want to hear any of this stuff besides not, believing her. She probably thinks she's a little crazy too. Uh, so we leave it at that at the school. And then we have two other friends, maybe a little bit younger than her. It's hard to tell. Uh, and they um, are in like a, I don't know, some sort of tower. It looks kind of like a lighthouse, but it's not a lighthouse. That's like abandoned, and it's like their little clubhouse thing that they've broken into since nobody's maintaining it anymore. So we see these kids talking both in one of the rooms and this little uh, clubhouse thing that they've put together, and they um, knew Matt, but it also sounds like they weren't exactly friends. It sounds like Matt didn't really have friends, and that Matt's like mother or something was like bribing them to go to his birthday party, which I assume would just be those three then, because if she's having to bribe kids to come, probably no more than that. And it sounds like they didn't do it, and the bribe was like giving them candy or something. So they just took the candy and then go or something. So they have some guilt about Matt disappearing too. That if they would have went to the party, uh, that he would still be around or whatever if they would have been his friend. And before Lily had the vision in, or not vision or whatever, but hearing the voices and seeing the finger in her tub, we see her flashback to hanging out with Matt in this little clubhouse area too, and she has some regrets as well. He tries to kiss her, and she doesn't like that. Ends up leaving, and I'm assuming that's kind of like the last time that she saw him, and so she thought if she would have reacted a little better, maybe he would still be around too. So after Marge doesn't want anything to do with her story, she decides to go to these two kids who she thinks they're friends with because Matt tells them like this clubhouse is their hangout, but to not tell them that Lily's been there because it's supposed to be just for them. But it turns out like it didn't sound like anybody was really Matt's friend, and that he had only been there once with the other two kids. It was kind of their clubhouse thing, and so Lily thinks that they are friends, so maybe they'll believe me with my story. They go uh, to the clubhouse, and she tells them, and um, one of the kids doesn't believe him. The other one's skeptical, but essentially says the same thing, that it sounds improbable. Later, we have Teddy, one of the kids that she tells the story to, is at home. Seems like a Jewish family. He's reading a comic book. at dinner instead of like studying for his bar mitzvah or whatever. And the dad kind of flips out on him. The brother doesn't seem to like him too much either, the older brother, and so he goes back into his room after his father tells him this horrible story. Uh, Basically, that being a Jew, we've seen all of the horrible things that like real life has to offer. So you don't need to be reading like comic books or have these silly ideas, uh, because our people have seen the worst, and that's like worse than anything you're going to read in one of these comic books or whatever. And he explains that they use the skins of Jews to make lampshades, back in Germany or whatever. And so he goes back into his room. His light keeps going off by itself. His little table lamp keeps turning it on. This happens, a few times, and the last time he turns it on, it has this vision of faces kind of on the lamp, like it's people's faces that have been used to uh, make this lamp, and it starts it's animated, it's taunting him. He goes and hides under a desk, and the lamp's kind of following him, and then he's screaming. His big brother ends up opening the door. It's kind of all like it didn't happen. The lamp's back on the table, and but after he sees this, he realizes that maybe Lily is not full of it, and so they have a conversation the next day. The other friend um, believes Teddy, so now all three of them are kind of in of what's going on here. They go to the library. Uh, they decide they're going to try to find out what happened to Matt, so they go to the library and they're going to look up information about that night, see what was reported in the newspaper. They found out that he was last seen at the theater, and that one of the I guess the girl that ended up kind of misleading the manager on where he was is stated in the newspaper, not with her name, but the kids know who that is based on what the paper says. So they go and go talk to her. She's older than them. She's very unhappy that they show up and try to talk to her because the police had, been there before. They were blaming her dad or something on his disappearance. So, she's tired of talking about this. She knows they didn't do anything wrong. And so the kids kind of give up and start walking away. But one of them mentioned something about the voices in the tub or whatever, and she hears this and calls them back. She has a horrified look on her face, and she asks them what they're talking about, and then she says that she's also heard voices and singing and kids and stuff. So it sounds like they both heard the same song, Lily and this girl. And so Ronnie, this girl that we see at the movie theater initially, she thinks the song's from a movie since she, works at that theater, and she kind of breaks them in, and they're going to go watch this movie to get some, more information or something, figure out why this song's taking place. So she's up, turning the movie on, the projector and stuff, and the other kids are in the theater watching this. It starts like it did before with Matt watching it. Weird, but nothing crazy going on. And then we see Matt in the movie. And these kids don't know it, but we also see the family from the car in the movie as well, just kind of hanging out in the crowd of this weird little movie. So they think Matt's like trapped somewhere, and they're calling to him to like come out and be saved or whatever. And he eventually gets kind of like an evil look on his face, and he's telling them, it's your fault that I disappeared, or I'm in here or whatever. And then the crazy gargoyle baby with wings shows up again and breaks out of the theater screen and starts chasing these kids around. Uh, and then it ends up killing everyone but Lily. So there's three other people in the theater. We have the two friends, and then one of their little sisters is in there. Apparently, kills all of them. Eventually, Ronnie gets to Lily before this thing kills her, and then that's kind of the end of the show. So this was kind of a shock to me, and we'll kind of get into it here. That part at least wasn't too graphic. I mean, she's holding like an arm at the end. She was trying to save the little girl, and she realizes she just still has like her hand in her hand. She like got ripped off, and that's, she starts screaming when she realizes that. But uh, so part of me is okay with this. So we've had we had the It movies, the book. The little kid is killed almost immediately in the story, and then that kind of sets off the what's going on here by the older brother and the friends and whatever. So that's fine. We need someone kind of whacked early to get the story started. But there's an important element of it where you kind of have these rules, right? So he wants to, eat or freeze kids or whatever he's doing once they're terrified, right? So part of that's just a great story element where, especially for movies, where we get to see these kids being terrified for, the length of a movie or a series or whatever, right? So that's good for the story, because otherwise just be like, why didn't you just grab all these kids the way you did the first kid, right? Just, little 10-second thing and you're good. And then the other thing is kind of, you need a limiting factor on its power because he's like a super powered alien thing that can manipulate, space and time and whatever he can do. So you have to have a reason why he's not just able to kill these kids immediately every time he sees them, whenever he wants. Every 27 years, he wakes up for 5 minutes, kills 100 kids, and, is on his way, right? That could happen if you don't have something limiting why he's not able to do that, where it makes sense, right? So this was a good way of doing that, where he's trying to terrify the kids and then eventually kill them. But, he's enjoying that process, and then they, taste better or whatever it is. Once it got to the point where they're so scared, they just kind of give up and accept being eaten or whatever it is, right? So if this is just, I'm killing off 4 kids right away, and then the rest of the characters are trying to figure that out. It's just 4 instead of 1. That's fine. But if it's not, where it's just killing off a bunch of people every episode, this is a little different then, and we have a little different rules. And at the end of this, we're basically left with 2 kids, just the 2 girls that are left that kind of know about this, where we, already killed off 4 other people. So, the little group that's going to get together and try to fight it, not doing so great even after the first episode, right? We're down to 2 people already. So, that could be a problem if it's just written poorly, and, we want to make some cool scenes in the first episode to get people hooked. But now we're kind of in a corner because we have 2 people, 2 kids left that are kind of in this. And, maybe Marge gets involved at some point, but she seemed to be more like the character just showing what position Lily is mentally and socially, just more of a character development for her as opposed to going to be an important character. Now, to be fair, kind of like Game of Thrones, this surprised me. I mean, I didn't see it coming. These kids were good actors, right? So, I'm surprised that they got offed immediately. And so if you're trying to tell a story and not have me know what happens, they did a great job of that. But again, my worry is that we don't have enough people left already. And again, we kind of need that limiting factor with his power. Otherwise it can't be a fight if he can just do whatever he wants right off the bat and not, terrify these kids. And then over time, they're trying to figure out things so they can kind of fight back a little bit, right? That's how the original It story goes. Now, I also have some thoughts that, it appears that's like it's been winning before that, right? So these other series may just be him winning the whole time, because it wasn't until this last group that we actually see in the original story. Maybe they're the only ones that really were able to fight back and, do something about him. And these other kids just kind of got wiped out, without much of a fight back. So that could be the story, but that's not as interesting, right? So we'll have to have something else going for it, for that to happen. And then that's part of my theory of after seeing all that, why I thought maybe the commander's character would be linked to, the future seasons, because, or at least the next one, because we need some other things going. It's not going to be the usual, the kids fighting against it for 10 episodes or whatever, if we've already killed off most of them. So we need something else happening, for, this story to last 10 episodes. So my initial thoughts are, I'm really glad they have the kid gloves off as far as the graphic scenes and kind of the horrific nature of things. That's good. And then, I don't know where the story's going. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. And we actually haven't even seen it yet. One of the scenes in the car, we see a little kid's eyes kind of go a little It-ish, where they're like, a little strange. So that's the closest thing to like It that we've seen so far. Obviously, we know it's behind all of this and can take different forms, but we haven't seen the usual clown It form yet. So anxious to see that, and we'll see if he shows up in episode 2 or whatever. So I was a little disappointed again with seeing the end. I was really enjoying it up until seeing, I assumed when that scene was happening, they were all going to get out and then, discuss what the hell, this is a lot worse than we thought. This isn't a kidnapping with Matt in the pipes, trying to talk to us from underground or something. This is way worse. But instead, again, 4 out of the 6 kids are already dead. So, I guess I'll leave it at that. I would certainly check it out. We'll get answers to this, in a week from now, so we don't have to wait around wondering where this is going. And then I'll continue kind of talking about it every week until we get to the end of this first season. So I would say check it out if you're an It fan, and unless it gets this writing really did write them into a corner where it's not going to make sense, that'll be a shame, but I doubt it. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. So that is it for this video, and I will talk to you guys next week about it.